Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? My name is Rob Carmona, and welcome back to another episode of Rob the Mic. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I know for myself, it was a little on the busy side. And not that I haven't had busy weekends, but I feel like this one in particular was a little on the busier side because it kind of started on Thursday, and on Thursday, it just kept rolling into Friday, Friday to Saturday, Saturday to Sunday. And it's been pretty packed up, even up until today, which is pretty nice. And I say it's pretty nice because I like having those times where I'm go, 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 go. Because it just, I don't know, there's something good about it. Again, especially because a lot of the stuff that I was working on and stuff that I was doing was pretty productive. And it got me to a good spot, like whether it was in my personal life, professional. And I don't know, it felt like a pretty good balance. Can't complain. I actually had an event on Friday night, which was kind of a bust, but it was nice to get out. And I did have a cool experience there. I got to talk to this one guy that just randomly came up to me while shooting and just jumped into conversation. So it's pretty cool. He was telling me, just kind of started spilling his life story and going into it, things that he's done, things that he's like correcting right now and like where he's at in life. And it was kind of it was a cool thing to come across, like to talk to somebody, get their perspective. That was random, completely random. Again, I had no idea who this dude was, just came up to me. But I think sometimes life will give you gifts like that, where you think you're going to go do one thing. Like I thought I was going to go shoot an event, and I ended up getting something different. Like I ended up talking to someone who gave me a different sort of perspective and was giving me just kind of what he's been through, and I was able to take his life and his story and kind of not apply it to myself, but just kind of take it and put it in the bank as something to think about and like things to think about, right? In a sense, like be thankful where I'm at, be very thankful where I'm at. And I am very much so, because I know, of course, I think for all of us, right? Like things can play out in so many different ways. And you are where you are for multiple reasons, whatever you believe in, whatever you want to chalk it up to. But for myself, I mean, the universe has put me here. This is where I'm at in my life, whether it's like personal, career, familial, anything like that. Like this is exactly where I'm at. And it was cool. It was a cool little moment on Friday. So even though the event itself was a bust, meeting this guy was pretty fucking tight. I can't complain about that. Coming up on Saturday, I had a hot rod classic car barbecue situation. That was really dope. I was really, really happy that I did that, because a part of me, I was going to cancel it and just kind of handle some stuff here at the house. I needed to catch up on some work, but I was like, nah, man, like there was something about it that I wanted to do it for myself, not even to shoot like anything like that. Like I just wanted to go and enjoy myself. So that was the first and like the main thing I wanted from Saturday. And I'm glad that I did that because again, it was tight. I had such a good time. The weather was perfect. And honestly, considering how it's been out here in LA for the last couple weeks, for some reason it rains on the weekends and that's it. Like during the week, it'll be good, rain on the weekends. And I mean, I'm not saying that we're not used to it out here, but we're not used to it out here. So like it fucks shit up. And especially coming into like season, and when I say coming into season, I mean like car wise, because events are fully back in swing. Everything's kind of it's coming out hard, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. But then when you have weekends like that, it just comes to a screeching halt. So the fact that this Saturday had the weather that it did, and I was just able to kick it with cool people, good vibes, good music, dope cars, I couldn't complain. So Saturday was really fucking dope. And then coming out of Saturday, I ended up taking the rest of the afternoon. I was home by like 6-ish, like around 5, 6. I got home and just kicked it the rest of the day, which was really nice. Sunday, I took off with Albert and Yessie. We ended up going up to Lake Arrowhead and just spending the day out there. And it was one of those things where Albert and I had been talking about it for a while, just like needing to get away, needing to breathe, and just disconnect, you know? So we had been kind of talking about it, and I hit him up Saturday night just to confirm, like, you know what, dude, let's roll tomorrow, yeah? And he's like, yeah, fuck it, let's roll. So we dipped out, enjoyed ourselves. It was snow, or not, it was snowing, but there was snow out there. And man, it had been so long since I'd seen snow, which I know for a lot of people, it's probably like, dude, it's not that big a deal, but I really enjoy it because I have a lot of really cool memories from my childhood, like being in the snow. So every time I go to the snow, it's not like I get to relive it, but it's like a very nostalgic thing for me. So anytime I get to share it with people, especially people that I love as much as Albert and Yessie, it means that much more. So getting to spend Sunday out there with them, one in Lake Arrowhead, and two, just spend the day with them, man, it was fucking dope. It was so dope. Like it was one of those things like I needed it. Every time I go out there, it's like I recharge. Even just driving up the mountain, I start to feel better about myself. Like just feel better as a person. So I'm like, shit, dude. And then whenever we're gonna leave, I go through the same fucking thing. I'm just like, I draw it out and I'm like, oh, let's just say like 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes turns into a half hour, which turns into an hour. And I'm just like, dude, just leave me here. Leave me here, right? Like it's cool. This is what I need. And we've talked about this multiple times on the show. I know. But nature does that shit for me. The mountains do that for me specifically. Like the beach is another one too, depending on what beach I'm at and, things like that. It can do kind of like a similar thing for me. But the mountains and the forest, it's very, very different. Very different what that gives me. So it was cool to experience that. Really, really cool. And the thing is, I guess on Saturday, because I was able to give myself that gift of just kind of doing something that I wanted to do, I got so much more out of it. And I realized this past weekend that, and I've been trying to work on this as of recent, right? Like I've been trying to do more things that make me happy, things that I want to do, things I want to focus on, whether it's, even if it's like with shooting or without shooting, like I want to do stuff that makes me happy. Like I need to pay attention to my happiness. What's bringing love into my life? What's bringing light? What's bringing good energy, good vibes? And it was dope because one of the guys I met on Saturday, I've actually shot his car before. And that's what sparked our conversation. But we started talking about work, professional life, all kinds of things. And there was a couple of things that stuck with me. And nothing bad at all. But it was just the fact that we were having conversations from like different perspectives. And also like age-wise, like he's a couple years older than me. I'd say a couple, maybe like got probably like 20 years on me ish. But it was nice to hear his perspective and like how he was looking at things, how he went about things. And then he was asking me about my career and what I do and why I do what I do. And it kind of leads me to today's topic. And something that also reinforced today's topic is I had an uncle that was visiting from Arizona. And he stopped by this morning. But we were talking a lot about that too. Just my career, where I'm at, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And I was like, man, it just, aside from getting that little part of the conversation of Saturday that I had with my buddy Isaac, and then having this talk with my Theo this morning, I was like, man, it just kind of reinforces like, okay, maybe I do need to talk about this. Maybe this is something that's kind of important. And it's not even just like to help people, but maybe just for myself. And who knows, maybe it gives somebody perspective and just kind of opens up doors and things like that. And maybe certain things people didn't know regarding design, right? Because I think that's a whole industry in itself, just being in design, being in the creative field. But the thing that started our conversation on Saturday with Isaac was we started talking about corporate, because he works for a certain company within the automotive industry it's a giant. They have the industry cornered in what they do and they kill it. He's an engineer for them. He does really well for himself and he loves what he does. So he started asking me about, again, what I do. And because he didn't know, he's like, dude, I see you have a camera. I see, you're out here doing your thing. But like, what is it that you do? Is this like a hobby situation, or is this for your work? Like, what do you do? So I said, look, I'm a designer by trade. I went to school. I have my BFA in this, that, third, started breaking all my stuff down. I was like, I've always loved photography. I've been shooting since I was a kid, started at 7, and I started with film. I was like all the way up to today. I've worked myself up to digital. I was like, and I also love doing video work. I'm not some crazy cinematographer, but like, this is what I love to do. And I want to wrap more of this into my daily work routine. So when we started talking about these things and we started talking about corporate work, he's like, dude, I don't know what it is to be in your shoes. I don't know what it is to freelance. I don't know any of that stuff. But he's like, off the top of your head, he's like, what are some pros, cons? Like, what is all that for you? He's like, I'm interested to hear what it is like for me, like what keeps me in my job versus what keeps you in your job. You know what I mean? And it was a very interesting thing to ask me, because Not that I hadn't thought about it before, but it was interesting to have it with a person of his caliber and where he is in the industry, especially in the automotive industry. So as we were talking about corporate jobs, I was like, dude, honestly, I think two of the major points to discuss about corporate work that is the most appealing in a sense is like the stable pay and the benefits. I was like, stable pay does so much for you and it eases so much for you, regardless if you're not making enough or anything like that. It's the fact that you're still making money and it's consistent. And if you show up every day, show up on time, you clock in, do your thing, you're going to clock out, you're guaranteed a paycheck. And there's a peace of mind with that. And I remember having that, especially when I was at Four Wheel. You know, as long as I woke up every day, opened my computer, did my job, I was good. That day, it's like guaranteed check. Same thing at the end of the week, you know, it's like guaranteed going to get paid. And there's something so easy about that. Because it's like, all right, I just got to do this, that, and third, and I'm going to get paid. And I loved it. That one thing I did love for sure. And I was also very fortunate at that time because I was in the industry and I was able to work with off-road and just kind of do all of that, which was fucking awesome. And I love it. And honestly, I do miss it. That portion I do miss. I really did love my job. That's probably the best corporate job I've ever had in my life. As difficult as some moments were, it was very rewarding. And it was rewarding for multiple reasons. Not just to be able to see my work in the wild, but to be in the industry that I love, doing what I love. That was really cool. And the whole benefit portion, right? Like health insurance, 401ks that get offered, stock options, things of the sort. Like those types of things when you have your own business are very, very different, right? Like your health benefits, your insurance, all that stuff. Like the hit that it takes and is just way different. You view everything different, especially even on like on the 401k side, right? Like you can offer yourself a 401k, I guess, but it's more so like investing and where you can put it and how you can kind of make up for if you have your own business versus being in a corporate job. And having to line that stuff up, especially for myself in the last, I'd say year and a half or so, maybe a little bit more than that. It's been so different because I've worked for myself before, but it's definitely not to this capacity. And where I'm at now and what I'm doing now, I view things very, very differently. And having so many friends that are still in corporate positions, it's like it allows me to constantly make that contrast, you know? But I know, especially on the design side, I think this is where majority of the cons come in for me personally. And this was something that Isaac found really interesting because a majority of the time, I feel like creatives aren't being paid enough. That's a huge one, number one. Your creativity gets stripped, right? Well, I'm not even just going to say right, but for those of you who are in the creative field, things like that, you could probably agree with that or you understand where I'm coming from. And you have to do what someone else tells you, regardless of how you feel or however you feel about the work being done. Like you have to do things, right? And it's when you're in a creative position and you're being stripped of your creativity, that's such a killer because it makes going to work so shit because you're like, fuck, man, like I'm capable of so much more and I have to kill this because of this job, because of this position, because of whatever I'm doing. Or you're being made false promises. That happens a ton in the creative field. Oh my God. Where they look at you for your skill, they look at your portfolio, do this whole thing. They love the work that you do, but they don't want you to do any of your work there. They want you to jump into a position that needs to be filled that is just going to work off of like templatized shit. And maybe they'll let you make your own templates and maybe you can kind of play with colors and shapes and bullshit like that. Little things here and there, but like don't really fuck with the structure. So it's like, we're going to kind of have you in here, but we're going to have you on a leash. You know, this is your company and you can run wherever you want, but you really can't. Because this is all you can do and this is what you're limited to. Your fences are here, 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 and here. And for myself, that's always been a killer, man. Every job that I've had. The only other job that kind of let me run free with things, and it was after a while, once I was there for a little bit, was at PacSun. Like that was a lot of fun too. And like I was able to do certain window designs and certain print designs and things like that. And even I was able to make my own templates and set up new standards, new styles. Like that was really cool too. And even though I had my moments, of course, where I was like, yo, stick to the books. It's a corporate thing, right? You have structures, you have standards that need to be followed. And sometimes when you can break the rules, you break the rules, and that's really cool. But between Paxa and Four Wheel Parts, those were definitely Four Wheel Parts being number one. I had the most freedom there. I was able to express myself in multiple ways, whether it was making clothing, doing print, digital stuff. So that was really cool. But those two jobs, I was definitely able to still kind of have my creativity. And my other ones that I've had, I definitely have not had that experience where sometimes I could put in input, but it wasn't things that I loved or things that I cared for. And I do care about fashion very much so. So Paxson was rad. And of course, heavy part of my every single day life is in automotive. So the fact that I was able to experience what I did with Four Wheel was fucking rad. Definitely fucking rad. But that first point that I brought up is a major con, right? Like not being paid enough. And creatives in general are not being paid enough. But what makes it tough, and it kind of wraps into the state of California a little bit, but I don't want to get too crazy into politics about all that shit. But it starts to like hit people where they're doing things out of necessity, not because of the standard of their position or the standard of their job. You can be making, or you should be making, let's say 70, 80K, but out of necessity, there's a job that's out there that's paying 50 for the same thing that, let's say, you should be doing 80K work for, but they're paying 50 and you take it. And again, out of necessity, I understand. But also at the same time, I think what people don't think about, or they're not really told this, is that things like that affect the industry as a whole. Because what happens is the threshold starts to drop, right? And I know this goes across multiple industries. It's not just creative. This goes across everything, whether it's like medical, business, accounting, anything like that, analytics, all of it. When people start to accept jobs at lower pay, they start to see that. Companies can kind of see that, and they can see what the going rate for someone in that position is, right? So if the going rate for a senior designer at a certain level is 80K starting, but there's another job offering, let's say 56, and somebody accepted it, they're like, oh, what are we doing? Like, why don't we drop it a little bit? And next thing you know, let's say they drop it 10K, 15K, 20K. Or let's say 56, and they're like, damn, dude, we're offering 80. Why don't we offer 65 instead of 80? Somebody bites for that 65, and it's like, shit. So again, the line just keeps dropping, which is really shit, and it makes it hard, and especially here in LA. Here in LA, the competition is so fierce and so severe because of situations like that, because people here are just trying to make it. People are trying to pay their rent. And it's super expensive out here. Like, to live and make a life in Cali is no fucking joke. It's no fucking joke. And I have homies who've definitely been in that position. I have some that just did it recently. Like, I have a buddy of mine that accepted a position. He had a corporate job before. It's taken him almost 7 months to find this new job. Ended up getting it. And he took, and I can't even say a pay cut, but comparing it to his old job, he took a little over a 20K pay cut because he needed a job. And it's crazy because the work that he's going to be doing is similar, but this company is just not offering what he was making. And it's like, fuck, man. Like, how can you take hits like that? And he hates it because he's like, dude, what I'm doing right now is fucking up the industry, right? Like, because now my company that I just accepted this job for, they're going to think they can continue to hire people at this price. And he goes, and they probably will. That's the thing. But he was in a situation of necessity. He had bills to pay. He had things to take care of. He had rent. And he's like, dude, I'm going to lose my shit. Like, I need a fucking job. And I was like, yo, like, I understand that. And he's not planning on staying at this job for a long time. He needs to be able to cover things. But he wanted to have a job while looking for another job, which is very smart. And I think especially in the creative field, because it takes so long. And I know I keep saying in the creative field because that's where I'm at. That's the one thing that I know. This is my industry. So it's always easier. And I feel like most people can say this too. It's always easier to find a job when you have a job because you're already in it and it's like options and all that things. But for some reason, when you don't have one, it's so difficult to get one, for sure. And I know because I've also been in that position prior to Four Wheel Parts. I had been looking for work for a cool minute. I was working for myself, but I was also trying to find like a little more steady of a paycheck. It took me a cool minute to find that. So seeing how much he struggled and how amazing his portfolio is, I was like, fuck, dude, it's rough. But also, these companies are smart and they look at shit and they're like, you know what? I'm going to get somebody that's going to accept this. And sure enough, they do. But things like that, it sucks because, again, it affects the industry as a whole. Because then people start to see, okay, you know what? We can lower these certain things. But at the same time, there's also still companies out there that are willing to pay because they're like, oh, hey, you know what? We need to do this. We need to do this. Keep the standard up. Do all this, that, and the third. If we want quality, this is what we need to pay for it, right? Because there's also that too. There's certain people that ask a certain amount of money and they can't do the job, and they honestly have no business being in that position. So it's like you get to do apples to apples, oranges to oranges type of situation, right? Like if I was to go back to a corporate job, I have a certain number in my head that I would be going back for, and I also have the portfolio to back it up now. You know, back then, I think as a creative, you have to constantly grow, constantly learn, push yourself to excel because it's a cutthroat industry. There's always going to be somebody else out there that's better, that can offer more, that can do more. And it's like, well, how do I compete with that? So you have to find ways to compete with that. So again, for me, that was a major con. Major con. And that was something I was talking to Isaac about. And as I was saying all of this, he was just like fascinated because he's like, damn, dude, that's wild. Because he goes, I know that, for example, at his job, they have a full marketing department and things like that. He's like, I don't know what they make. He's like, but I mean, I see new people every once in a while, and I'm like, I wonder. He's like, because I've been in my department where I work, it's like for a cool minute, and it's very rare that we get somebody new. But he's like, it's always interesting to look at different industries and hear what people have to say and things like that. And from that point, he started to ask me about freelancing. And he's like, dude, pros and cons. He's like, what's up? He's like, because I don't know too many freelancers. He's like, I really don't. I just, he's like, I feel like it's common, but not common. And he goes, I don't really know anyone. So he's like, what is it that keeps you in your field? What is it that keeps you? He goes, because I know it's more of a struggle for sure. He's like, and I know there's a lot of money to be made and there's a lot of things to be done, but I know it's a struggle. And I said, yeah, dude, for sure. And I said, look, it's the same thing I mentioned to you about corporate work. I said, the biggest con, in my opinion, is the instability that you don't know. You don't know if you're going to get any more referrals. You don't know where the money's going to come from. You have to get crafty. You have to think about shit. And I said, that's the hardest part of freelancing. And there's so many pros, in my opinion, that it's okay. Like I deal with it. You know, it allows me time for myself to handle the things that I need to take care of. It allows me time to take care of my family, help with my grandparents, with my mom, take them to doctor's appointments, whatever they need. Go to the market, things like that. Like for my family, like it allows me time to take care of my family, which is very important. And it's also something that like my family growing up for myself, they always took care of me. They made sure I had everything. They made sure, I was good. I had lunch, dinner, all those types of things, like simple things like that. And me being in this position, like for example, yesterday, my mom needed some help. So I'm like, yeah, cool. I got you. Whatever the fuck you need. Took care of a bunch of stuff I needed to take care of around the house. I made dinner for everybody. And I'm like, all right, cool. Being in a corporate job, it would have been very, very different. If I work from home, granted, those types of things are flexible. But if I'm at a spot, I got to come home from traffic, 7:00. I'm like, dude, my grandparents can't eat at that time. They got to eat early, right? Because they got to take their medications and things like that. So being in this position allows me flexibility and I can do certain things and cater to certain people, which is really nice. Really, really nice. And I get to move things, right? In levels of importance. So again, there's a lot more pros for me being a freelancer than there are cons, but that con is a very, very heavy one. And it's a weight that I carry every single day. And he's like, dude, wouldn't you want to just get rid of that and go back to a corporate job? I said, again, I was like, dude, I totally would. I would 100% go back to a corporate job. I just have a certain number that needs to be met. Because at this point now, because I've been freelancing for a certain point, I'm going to be sacrificing a certain amount of things. And it has to be worth the sacrifice. Because now it's like, in my opinion, you're paying me for my skill, you're paying me for what I do, but you're also paying me to give up these things. You're paying me to sacrifice this time with my family, to help my grandparents, to do things around the house, whatever needs to get done. Now you're going to be paying me for that as well, which I know probably for some of you watching and or listening, you're like, what the fuck? How can you charge for that? How is that even a thing? But it is, because your time is worth money. Anybody's time is worth money, no matter what the fuck you do. You choose what you want to do with your time, right? Whether you want to be with your friends, whether you want to be working, whether you want to be gardening, or whatever the fuck is important in your life. It's worth something. We all trade something for our time. All of it. Every single one of us. We all trade something for time. So in this position, like I was telling Isaac, if I'm to walk away from freelancing, it's got to be worth it. The penny's got to be there. Everything has to line up. Because if it doesn't, why the fuck am I here? I'm not going to be sacrificing all of these things so that I can be making fucking minimum. That's bullshit. Like, I know what I'm worth. I know what my skill's worth. I know what everything that I'm capable of, I know what it's worth. And then some. And I've had people that I've worked with, I have clients that I work with now that continuously reinforce that. And I'm constantly trying to make myself better. I'm constantly trying to learn new techniques and learn my software differently, because for myself, I work on Adobe, and Adobe is so expansive. Now it's overwhelming. It didn't used to be as complicated as it is now. But I think the cool thing about it being complicated is that you can constantly go down different rabbit holes and learn more. And within my industry, that's very important to constantly learn, or be able to offer more services, or be able to understand what you're doing in a deeper level, you know? So I try to hone in on my skills. And again, all that stuff is worth something. But if I don't have that worth, if I don't feel it in myself, it's never going to pass. And no one's going to think that either. Right? So I have to believe it. I have to see it. And I also know it too. Like I have that confidence in myself and what I do every day. I do. I definitely do. And the fact that I continuously am trying to work and better myself, it's like, cool. It constantly reinforces that. So again, it's not that I wouldn't go back to a corporate job. That's just like I told him. I was like, but it has to be worth it. Because now I'm going to be giving up so much more. And those things are worth a lot to me. Those things are worth a lot to me. My time now is worth a lot more than it was, let's say, 5 years ago, for sure. And at the same token, speaking of like wages and all that stuff like that, we started talking about, even today with my uncle, he's like, dude, between the wages in your industry, and he's like, obviously you feel a certain way. Like my Theo was telling me this morning, he's like, obviously you feel a certain way. He's like, how do you feel about like the whole California minimum wage, like going up to $20, you know? And I was like, fuck, I have so many thoughts about this. So many thoughts. But it sucks because we had this already a few times right here in Cali, where the minimum goes up and then things start to tank. Jobs start to tank and people don't understand why. And it's like, well, now I feel like, especially, let's say fast food, there's so many alternatives to having people. You know, now you have kiosks, you have all these types of things. So you start to develop like a skeleton crew where the kiosk does the work for you. And maybe there's somebody there if you have a question, or if something isn't working right, they'll have somebody to help you, but there isn't people to take your order anymore. Like I've been into restaurants like that where it's all kiosk now. And it's like, damn, dude. Whereas before, let's say they had 2-3 people working cashiers, it's like they completely nixed that. And let's say on the low end, if they're making, I don't know, let's say 40 grand a year, you know, being a cashier, you just cut those positions. So now you don't have cashiers anymore. Or you went from a crew of, let's say 7 or 8 cashiers down to 1 or 2, because that's all you need. Now you just need someone to kind of help guide things, right? Or if you have certain guests that just don't understand how to use a kiosk, you can have someone there to walk them through it. But now you don't need a full team of people that are going to be doing register. You need cooks. You need people to do QC, like quality control, make sure everything's cool, make sure everything's working out. That's the answer to a lot of this shit. And it's going to happen. It's already happening. Where like these types of things come into play, for example, the $20 wage. So it's, as a corporation, think about it, right? Like if it's your business and someone says, hey, let's say you're paying your employees right now $15, right? But the law states now you got to do 20. You have a full team. Let's say you have a team of 20 people. You just went up $5 a person by law. Let's just say, again, hypotheticals. How's that going to affect your business? Let's say you have a restaurant. Now you got to raise the prices of everything. You got to do all this stuff to offset. Let's say you went from paying $8 for a hamburger. Now you're paying $16 for a hamburger. You're like, fuck, dude. How did this happen? How did this happen? Right? People ask for certain things, but they don't understand the consequences of those things, right? And then also, I mean, dude, there's so many, in my opinion, there's so many negative impacts of these types of decisions. And it's sad because the ones who pay is us. It's the working class, right? We're trying to figure this shit out and it gets thrown on our plates. You know, it's your responsibility. These are things y'all got to take care of. And it's like, fuck, man. Like, I notice it with my local restaurants, whether it's a burger stand, anything like that. I'm just like, bro, why is it this much for a hamburger? You know, back in the day, I'd get a combo for this. And I understand. I know things change, time change, all of this. Things got to move. But it's just like, to what extent? Like, we're going to keep pushing things out. And it's almost like, fuck, dude, like, I don't want to do this shit. Like, for myself, recently I went to Carl's Jr. with a friend of mine. We went to go get some food because we wanted something fast. And he had a Carl's by his house. We went to go get Carl's. Dude, we walked away. All we got was like, I got a chicken sandwich combo. And he got like a burger combo and like I don't know, I forgot what other side he got. Simple though. Dude, it was almost $40 for us. And I was like, fuck, man, we're at Carl's, dick. Like, why are we paying this much for this? Like, I'd rather go to a sit-down restaurant, you know, I'd rather go to fucking Lazy Dog or something. Because at that point, I'm going to pay X amount for a hamburger, but it's going to be bomb. You know what I mean? And like, the service is going to be cool. They're going to bring this shit to me. Like, I'm going to get to kick back. Yeah, I'm going to tip the fool out, but like, that's not a problem. It's just the experience, right? So I'm like, why am I paying this much at a fast food restaurant when I could be paying this at a restaurant, right? But then again, you got to factor in the wages. If fools want to make $20 an hour working at Carl's, the Carl's is going to go up. You know, chicken stars ain't going to be $1 no more type of shit, which in fact, they're not, on some hater shit. Because I got some of those recently too. And I was like, what? What do you mean? But something's got to give. Something's got to give. And I think it begs the question, is it worth it here for California? Like, is it worth it to live here and try and make a life here? And there's so many points to argue both sides. And I'm constantly talking about this with the homies. Like, this is always a point of contact for all of us. Always. Especially for those of us trying to get houses, things like that. And it's like, dude, our parents, their parents, they're in very different shoes, right? Like for us, especially here where I'm at, specifically in LA, dude, starter homes, 700,000-800,000. Like, what the fuck? What in the actual fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, back in the day, and I know I keep talking about back in the day like it was forever ago. And I know things change, market changes again. I understand that. Well, fuck aware of it. But it sucks, right? Because imagine that. Starter homes going from 200, 300, 400, even 5. 5 was crazy if you were spending that on a starter home, right? Now, that's $500,000 considered cheap. That's considered like, whoa, dude, that's like unheard of now, which it kind of is. It kind of is. Even when you find a house in the 6s, you're like, fuck, that's a good deal. You're talking like a shoebox. Small house, small yard. May or may not have a garage. I don't know. But you're like, oh, this is a great deal. Whereas to back in the day, it was like, what the fuck? I wouldn't pay over 200, 300 for that house. That's insane. But it's normal now. And again, with wages, and you have these companies that don't want to pay people correctly, but then you have other industries that are forcing certain amounts of pay. It's like, where's the balance? What do you do? How do you make it? How are you supposed to make it in a world like this, right? And then I see friends outside of here, Arizona, Texas, Oregon, Washington, Utah, that are living their lives, that are doing it. And I see that shit all the time too, dude, because I follow certain realtors, or not realtors, but like I follow their content, so I get it a lot on my Explore page. and I'll see somewhere in Texas, like, you know, a badass, freshly built house, whatever, 250,000, 300, 350. And I'm like, shit, what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck am I doing? Right? Like, I'm struggling like this so that I can make it here because I love it here. This is where I'm from. This is where my family's at. It's where everything is. It's where my life is. So I will put myself through the struggle to make it. But I'm constantly looking out, and I'm not gonna lie, I keep seeing shit and I'm like, yo, it's mad attractive. Mad attractive. Like, why wouldn't I entertain that? Even if it's for a little while. Because there's always that too, right? You can always dip out, do your thing for a bit, and then come back. I think about it all the time. All the time. And again, I've had quite a few friends leave here and have made lives for themselves, like in other places. And I'm like, shh. They're like, dude, just come. You won't struggle as much. Like, it's not the same, bro. And I'm like, I get it, but this is like, again, what are you willing to trade? Everything is worth something. So for myself, it's like I'm not willing to give up. I'm not willing to give up. I'd rather struggle and be here, you know, to show myself that I can do it. Because I'm also working really hard so that I can make something of myself. I can make something that my family can be proud of, like my homies, all of that. I'm also trying to show myself that it's possible. And in being in my field too. Because especially from like a family standpoint, like I have family in the medical field, a family like in different forms of business, things like that. And it's like, I wanted to show myself that I didn't need to be a doctor to make it. I didn't need to be an architect. I didn't need to be a lawyer. Like, I could do this shit doing what I love. That I could take pictures, I can do video, I can do design and do things like that. And I can make a living for myself. So it's more so of just a me thing. It's my own mental blockage that's stopping me from seeking a life outside of California. Because I want to do it. I want to show myself that I can do it. And honestly, when I hit that point where I'm happy and I'm like, fuck, I did it, you know? Then I'd be down. I'd entertain going elsewhere, getting property in other places, you know, things like that, for sure. But this is just like a thing for me. It's just like, I want to try to do it here. And I'm trying my hardest. I'm trying my fucking hardest, you know? Trying all these different projects, different things, different methods to make money. And it's cool. That's how I was raised. If one thing doesn't work, try something else. If that thing doesn't work, try something else. And, you know, for the homies that have their own businesses, like, you know, y'all understand, y'all get it. You know, side hustles, things like that. You know, you're constantly trying to get that money. And I'm also trying to find a balance too, where it's like to not fall into hustle culture too much. Because when you do, man, that shit takes over your life. And you're all of a sudden you're working 24/7. And I'm like, nah, I'm trying to find the balance in multiple things right now. And I know I'm close. I know I'm close to that. But I'm just trying to keep it pushing. And as I was talking about all this, both with my Theo today and with Isaac on Saturday, they both kind of had the same reaction, like where it was like, fuck, man, keep it going. Don't drop that shit. Like you have something that you're chasing, and that chase is what's keeping you alive. And it's true, for sure. That chase definitely keeps me alive. It definitely keeps me pushing, keeps me wanting more. And I'm hungry, right? I'm hungry. I'm trying to eat, trying to do my thing. And the people around me are the same way too. The closest people to me are definitely in that boat where they're hungry. They're trying to eat. And we're all trying to figure out ways, even though we might not be in the same fields or things like that, like we try to help each other, whether it's emotionally, anything that we can do. You know, I have homies that immediately, if they need something designed, even if it's like a birthday invitation, anything like that, anything they can toss my way, they do right away. And I'm like, fuck, dude, like, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, dude, I need photos of my daughter. Can you help me out? Hey, cool. I'm down with that. Hey, I need so-and-so pictures for this. Hey, I need video for that. Hey, I got you. Hey, dude, can you design this for me? Oh, I need a flyer. I got you. Very, very thankful for that. And again, keeping people around me that are in that same state of hunger and that same state of trying to hustle, it helps, right? So it's like we've talked about before too. Build your circle the right way. Keep the right people around you, because those are the people y'all are going to come up together. Every single one of y'all, because you're collectively trying to move. And if somebody can't take the step, they're going to help you take the step. It's like, cool, hey, don't worry about it. Let's keep it moving. Because if we keep moving together, we're going to be in a better place. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm at right now. So even though I constantly struggle with, it's like, do I go back to corporate? Do I continue the hustle on this side? What do I do? I'm still pushing. Regardless, I'm trying to constantly push myself. So we'll see. We'll see what unfolds over the next few months. You know, I'm not sure. A lot of things change. Things could change tomorrow. I'm not sure. I don't know. But what I'm certain that good things are coming as long as I can continue on this path, as long as I can keep it pushing, keep it moving. If I don't stop, I'll be all right. It's the moment that I stop that I start to be like, what the fuck am I doing? And I don't want to get to that place because I've been there before. For sure, I've been there before. And I told myself I would never go back. So there's no, like, failure isn't an option. You know what I mean? Like, not doing it is not an option. So I got to keep it going. And you know, I was talking to a friend this morning, my homie Liz. She's doing some product photography right now, and like it's with shoes and stuff like that. She's gonna be doing her thing, and she starts talking to me about her camera and like all these types of things and what she's trying to do. And she's not stressed out about the job, but it is a stress on her mind, right? That like she has to produce and do certain things for this company. And it was funny because as I was talking to her about everything, I'm like, girl, don't worry about shit. You got nothing to worry about. Do this, do that, do this, and that's it. And at one point I told her, and she ended up like hitting me back with it. Like she's like, yo, this shit that you said, this is the best advice ever. And I started to break it down. So I say, you know what? I'm going to use that shit on the podcast this week. And I told her, because at one point when we were talking about camera stuff, I said, you know what? Just put that shit on auto and go live your life. And she's like, that part. I said, yeah, you know what? You're fucking right. Because it doesn't just apply to photography. And I'm not saying to just go put your fucking camera on auto and go do your thing. But what I meant by telling her that was like, don't make shit so complicated. You know what you're doing. You have your shit dialed. There's a reason why you nailed this job, why you got this contract. So do that. Don't make it complicated. Turn your camera on, do it how you do it, make the shit happen, make the magic, and that's it. And I think a lot of us have to do that. You know what you're doing in your life, for the most part. So sometimes you got to just put that shit on auto and run it up. Make it happen to the best of your ability. Because things are going to work out. You're in the position that you are because you've got yourself there, whether it's at your job, with your family, anything like that. Like, you got yourself to where you are today. So you're not doing that bad. You're clearly not doing that bad. You're all right. And you're going to be all right. Things are going to get better. If it's rough right now, it's not going to be like that for a long time. It's just a patch. It's how it works. Roads aren't always paved, right? Sometimes you got to pave it yourself. But things pan out. So for her, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, dude, put that shit on auto and go live your life. Take these photos, handle your shit, do your edits, you're done. So again, for all of y'all out there, sometimes you got to just put that shit on auto and just let it happen. Run it up because you know what you're doing. You're going to be all right. It's not that fucking bad. But as always, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys for listening. I'm curious to hear your feedback on all this. So comment, let me know what's up in your industry, whatever industry you're in. Shoot me a DM. Let's talk about it. You know, how anything. As always, I love starting conversations with you guys. I love where this can take us. I love what it does, all of that. But I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you. I hope you have a beautiful afternoon, beautiful rest of your week, an incredible weekend. And I will catch you guys on the next one.